the divisional sheltering co-lead along with Alan Underkoffler, and I, along with Alan, lead the Pacific Division shelter meetings. So our subject tonight, I'm going to be presenting with Nancy Wakeman. We're going to be talking about the paperless PII, and that's got to do with protecting our client information. And then Nancy's going to go over a lot of the changes that we've seen in SCIA since last year. So hopefully a lot of you have done the SCIA training, and this will give you the updates before you get ready to go out for this year. So I'm going to share my screen and get started. So what we're trying to do in Red Cross, especially starting this year, is really focus on protecting our client information for the people in the shelters. This is our agenda, what we're going to talk about. What is the client information? What does it do? What do we do with it? What are we doing differently? And what are we doing the same? And how is it going to change the way we work in shelters? So basically, SCIA is SCIA's shelter client information application, and it is the system of record that we're using for collecting all data on our shelter clients. We're not going to be using any paper forms anymore. We're not going to be writing any client names, any client information down on paper. Everything is going to go into SCIA from now on. This is the type of information that we collect: name, address, pets, gender, allergies, their housing status, and a sample of questions. If you've seen SCIA, you can see that a lot of them are pretty basic questions of just the information that we really need to be able to service our clients. And the reason why we collect all this information is because you can see from this next slide, this is a list of the groups that use the information in SCIA. Health Services is going to want to know if you have allergies or if you have any immediate medical needs. Mental health, there's going to be questions in there that they're going to be looking for information for. SRT uses SCIA quite extensively to know who's in the shelters, what their situation is, what their pre-disaster situation is. Feeding collects all your information about who has food allergies, how many people we have, who has special feeding needs. Reunification has direct access to the system as they're trying to help our clients or people outside of our shelters to find out if their loved ones might be in the shelters. So again, a lot of people want our client information, and if we have it on a paper form in a binder, then it's really hard to get to. So we're using this as a system of record, both for so people can easily access it. And let's see. So the focus now is that we really want to make sure that the client information is secure. We want people to feel safe in our shelters. That we want them to know that we're there, that we're going to be there to help them. I'm sure you guys have all seen the news with all the stuff that's going on with the immigration. There's a lot of clients that we have that might not come to our shelter if they don't feel safe there. So we want to do as much as we can to protect everybody in our shelter. And there is a more increased potential for confrontations or law enforcement coming to the shelter looking for people who they might be looking for. So if we don't have documents written down, they can't take it. So they can't take what we don't have. So if we don't have a log, they can't ask us to search for it. So if they did, we don't have that. So if we have it all in SCIA, then we're protecting our clients. So I'm going to go over what hasn't changed, because a lot of things haven't changed. We're still going to be working on protecting our clients' privacy and keeping their information confidential. SCIA and RC Care is used by SRT and Health Services and IDC, Individual Disaster Services. That's another system that we use. That if you are in those groups, you would have special access to that. So those are our only systems of record. We're not doing Excel spreadsheets, anything like that anymore. So shelter workers do not consent to warrantless searches. There's a new policy, and you can find that in OneSource. There's a doctrine bulletin about law enforcement within our shelters. So it basically says that the police are there to help us in certain cases when we need them, if we need them for confrontations, if they're looking for people who might be missing, if we've called them in, or if it's a valid reason. We don't want our shelter workers. It's not just the police. We have signs that says this is where our clients are. This is basically their bedroom. This is the dormitories. Only people that should be in the dormitories are the clients, the shelter workers, and any partners that are doing services specifically for our clients. Anybody else, we don't want in our dormitories. The public areas of our shelters are open. We have services. We have lots of people that are maybe wandering around, but we can't let anybody else into the dormitories. We have new signage now that you can find on OneSource that has a lot of information about, or it just basically states out very clearly that the dormitories are basically off limits to anybody outside of the clients and Red Cross. So if a police officer did come and had a warrant, and there's very specific information in OneSource in that doctrine on police officers in a dormitory, then there's a very specific set of procedures that you should follow. So if you're working in a dorm, I would definitely look that over beforehand. Again, that's new. Basically, you escalate it to your supervisor, and your supervisor should know. If you're a supervisor, you should definitely go look that up. So without sharing any confidential information, Red Cross can and should help law enforcement find missing people. They should only share client information with client consent, and that's a form a section in SCIA that has been there in the past. The client consents to share their information. And then shelter workers report their concerns to their supervisor or DRO headquarters. If somebody comes in, then for example, I was down in LA just this past January, and we took over the shelter from our partner, and then we turned it into a Red Cross shelter. And before that, the city of Pasadena had let police officers just walk through. So when we took it over, I actually personally stopped a couple of police officers and said, "Hi, can I help you?" And I just want to walk around. Oh, we don't, this is the dormitory area that is kind of is off limits, but here you're free to walk in those other areas. One time I saw somebody in the dormitory, a police officer, and he wanted to talk to a person. I said, "Excuse me, would you mind taking that conversation out in the hall? This is basically this is their bedroom. So, if you could just take it out in the hall." And they were very willing to do that. So if you talk to them nicely and explain what you're doing and why you're doing it, then I find them most often very willing to help comply with our standards. So, but and again, after we did that, the first day or so after we had taken over the shelter, it didn't happen anymore. They came and they realized that this is how we were running it, and they were fine with it. So, but if they were looking for somebody and had a warrant, then we would let them in. We would have to do that, and then you would let your supervisor know. So things that have changed. So we're using everything paperless in SCIA. The only exception is if you get an exception from the DRO director or your regional disaster officer. So then that needs to go up the chain, and it has to be authorized even from the very beginning. So shelter leaders shelters will no longer record client names on Post-its, pieces of paper, anything else, no spreadsheets, no maps with names on them. Everything needs to go into SCIA. So for services, you can now make referrals. We used to have a referral log on the counter or on the registration desk in a dorm that would be shared with the different services like health services and mental health. All of those would go into SCIA now, and Nancy will go over how we are going to record that. So no more paper forms. New signage exists, and I think I talked about that. Oh, there was something else I just thought of. So one of the issues becomes, how do you then record where your clients are? And we've done a little bit of thinking about this. It really, really matters now, I think, in managing client information. If you make a map of your dormitory area in advance, as you're setting up the dormitory, and number your cots in a logical system, and then you could more easily track the information without having to have a name associated with it. You could, for example, you might put a client, if you needed to write anything down and you didn't, without writing any information, if you didn't have SCIA yet, you could either wait until you got SCIA and then register information that way. That would be the best way to do it. So actions. So reflect on which shelter tasks you do that you've used paper before, that you've written anything down. No sign in and sign out forms for clients. You still would have it for partners and any Red Cross staff, but we wouldn't be doing sign in, sign out forms for clients anymore. So think about other areas that you would normally use a paper that you would write anybody's name down on, and try to figure out how you could do that differently. For sign in, sign out, we just wouldn't do it. We wouldn't be able to track that. So work within your region to ensure that paper forms are removed from your shelter trailers so they're not inadvertently used. There's going to be a lot of people who don't know about this procedure starting this year because it's brand new, and a lot of people we know don't necessarily get to all the training. So we need to make sure that we are using SCIA and that we get the word out. And if we have those forms in our shelter kits, it's easy for somebody who doesn't know about this to start using it, and that puts our clients at risk. So visit the SCIA sandbox, get some more information, learn how to use it. There's a lot of information on OneSource. Just type in SCIA toolkit, and Nancy will go over all of that. But by just typing it in there, there's videos as everything is being updated. They're updating the videos within OneSource, and they're short, they're easy to use. If you forget about it, if you forget how to do something, before you go on a DR, I would always recommend that you look through the SCIA toolkit just to see what's new, what's changed, and just maybe even just to go to the training module and just run through the screen so you're familiar with it. One of the things that I have seen on the last couple big DRs that I've been on is that people get there and don't know how to use SCIA, and it really slows everything down in the very beginning. So as much as you can do to prepare yourself before you go and get familiar with any changes, I think the easier it is. Again, review the law enforcement and Red Cross doctrine. That's new this year. Or actually, it's not. We've always had a doctrine, but there's a lot of different information there. So that would be really good to know. And arrive at your shelter shift ready to help others be successful. SCIA is something that a lot of people still haven't had a lot of experience with. You're going to have event-based volunteers who might be on helping in shelters, especially on the big responses, and they haven't used SCIA. So you might need to help somebody else do that. I always have it on my phone, so I know how to access it. I've saved it onto my desktop on my phone, so I can get in there at any time and not have to figure out how to log in. So I think that is the last slide. So actually, I'm going to stop sharing. I think I'm going to stop sharing. Oh, stop sharing up here. And Nancy, are there any questions in the chat? Oh yeah, no shower sign up. Oh, that's true. So that's a good one, Linda. I hadn't thought about that.
Very good. Yes.
Yeah, you could do a phone number. Probably
or a cot number.
Yeah. For how to get a hold of them. Let's see. If needed, job directors can give permission to use the paper registration yes. But yeah, it's definitely needs to have a job director's approval. Will management get shelters listed in SCIA faster? They should be in there pretty quickly as soon as we open a shelter. Part of the shelter opening process is to open the shelter in SCIA. So, so I would think that I didn't know that there was an issue with getting them in SCIA quickly, because that should be one of the first things that happens. So,
agree.
Let's see, shelter logs. Nancy, isn't there, I thought there was a shelter log in shelter notes. Is it in this module yet?
There is a referral log, but not general shelter notes yet.
Okay. Okay, that's actually a good one, because we want to be able to pass on information and without writing it down. I'm gonna look into that one a little bit more and see what I don't know, and if anybody else has had experience doing this since we have done this paperless. I suppose you could always make a note with no name and attach. There's no SCIA number too, is there, Nancy?
There's not a registration number. You don't get a magic number. You get a cot number, though. That's basically the only unique thing I think that is being done.
Yeah, it's unique.
SCIA is not generating it.
Yeah, but it's unique until somebody leaves and somebody else takes that cot number. Right. So, okay, that's actually really good. If you guys come up with anything like that, questions you have, let us know, because this will help us to figure out in advance. I mean, in January, when we had the LA fires, this wasn't we didn't have to do this. Now we do. So it's like real life,
Yep.
figuring it out as we go. So things are going to come up, and it's great. So if you have any other questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Nancy to go over the SCIA piece. This is
Okay,
Nancy
hi
Wakeman.
guys.
I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi. I'm actually in Northern California coastal region, but I do most of my work through national headquarters, and SCIA support is one of my things, one of the hats I wear. So I'm going to talk to you about a number of different things. We're going to focus primarily on what's new in SCIA since last year. We are continually evolving it and trying to make it easier, more intuitive, add additional functionality like things like referral logs, et cetera. So, and I will be redoing the videos shortly. I'm waiting for the next code drop, and then I'll redo the videos. But you're going to get a sneak peek at that new system. So I'm going to share my screen. We're going to start. Laura, thank you for the segue on the Shelter Client Information App Toolkit in OneSource. Literally, if you go to OneSource and you type in SCIA, that's the first thing that pops. So you're going to want to do that. What you find here is we are now putting nightly shelter counts in, and I'll show you how to do that in the tool itself. Here are your links. So this is the link to the production site, and this is the link to the training website, and it brings you over and pops you in, if you will. You can also type in redcross.org/SCIA training, and it will take you to the right place. Many of these videos are going to get bolted in, so I'm not going to cover them right now, but they're here and they will be here until they get bolted into other videos. Client intake is the number one thing that people will be using, particularly if you're sitting down and doing dormitory registration. So if all else fails, make sure you're familiar with client intake. Those are the videos, and they, like I said, are about to get redone. There's some additional job tools. One thing I want to point out here is that we do post release notes. So every time we get a new release, we get release notes from the development team that tell us what is in that release. And we've tried to make sure that they're written so mere mortals can understand them instead of just software people. So if you're ever curious about what just happened, you can come here and read the release notes. I want to point out something at the bottom on system access. So there's a big section here, and I'm not going to go into the details, but this tells you what the automatic access is. So based on your gap, based on your role, and based on whether or not it's a regional or a DRO activity, it tells you what your automated stuff looks like. So who would automatically get things. This also gives you additional information on that. But what I wanted to point out is down here at the bottom. So as we find ourselves in a situation where we're using local community volunteers or EBVs or people that are DAP people that don't really work in shelters very often, you're going to find yourself in a situation, particularly if you're a shelter manager or a mass care chief, et cetera, where you've got people that don't have SCIA access, that you need to have SCIA access. There is a process that is documented here on how to get that access for people that do not get it in an automatic fashion. And the main things to notice are you need to provide in an email to SCIA@redcross.org the DRO or incident name, the person's name, their volunteer connection sign-in email address, and their volunteer connection ID, and why you need them in. And then the emails have to come from or be copied to. That will also work. Let me scroll back down. Sorry, I didn't mean to pop like that. From either the DRO director, sorry, there we go. Assistant Director of Operations, Zone Coordinator, Mass Care Chief, Sheltering Manager, or an RDO. So if it is a local disaster, it would probably be your RDO. So either they send the email or someone else can send the email after discussing it with them and copying back to them. Now, that piece is not recorded here, but we do, for the most part, accept that. So just wanted to let people know that because it's happening more and more often. Okay, let's see if I can find my tabs here and show you what the system actually looks like now. So we, as I said, we are about to do an update. We've been doing QA on it. I'm going to show you, excuse me for being awkward with my screen. There we go. Okay, I'm going to show you, this drives me nuts. I don't want that piece on top there. Okay, so there we go. Okay, this is the new version of SCIA. And notice the colors are different. So, and it is a version that is 1.9.9. Now, you can see I'm in a staging environment, and that's where we do our QA, but this is what it's going to look like. So everything you see tonight is based on the latest release that will be installed in the training environment in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll wait a couple of weeks to put it into the production environment to give people a chance to play with it before it goes live. So this is what it looks like. I'm going to start and talk about different pieces that have been changed. So the new client information, so registering a new client, one of the things that has changed is that we now require age. So you can put in, you know, first name, last name. After you've selected this stuff, it stays selected for you. But then you are required to put in either age or under age of 1 and refuse to disclose. So you do have that other option there if the person does not want to give you their age. So that has been changed. This helps us when we are working with partners, and in particular, when we are working with partners that are helping with precariously housed individuals. Many of those people are registered with partners, and if we can give them a name and an age, it helps them determine whether or not that person is already one of their clients or whether it's a new client, and they deal with people differently based on that. So, you know, you've got your household members. Now, one of the things to notice here, though, is the first screen we were on put in the client's information and age. What we used to have is that, do you have any urgent needs screen next? We've now switched it. So now household members are next, and you can add another or get rid of the empty slot if you need to, and then move right along. And then you get the urgent information screen. And notice it has changed in how it's laid out. So if someone needs infant needs, then you click on that essentially invisible tab, if you will, and put down, and you must add something like, you know, so you must add something. Once again, medication, we do not have a type-in field for it because we don't want to collect people's specific medications here. That feels like an invasion of privacy. But all the rest of the fields, if you check the person's name, you get a type-in. So if you check the person's name, you get a type-in. And I'm going to uncheck that one. So then from there, we're going into screens that we've seen before. So these are pretty straightforward, and I'm not going to go through any more of the client intake screens. Let me come, though, over here and show you changes that have been made to the editing of a client. So once again, the colors are different. And so one of the things that's kind of interesting that they've done is, it used to be that you had the ability to look at a summary and the ability to edit the demographics, CMIST, or SRT triage. Now all you get is this show summary. However, if you need to edit, you can now edit one question at a time. Used to be you went into the whole thing and you had to go all the way through the end of it to get out again. Now you can go in and edit one question at a time. The other thing that they've done, and you don't see this, but it's there under the covers, is you can start one of these things and say, yes, okay, I'm gonna say that this person needs something, materials in Braille, and continue to the next screen and then go, oh, somebody, a busload of people just walked up. I can't do this right now. You can go back, or you can use this button to go back, and your information that I lied to you, it's supposed to stay. So, well, there you go. We'll have to try that. Let's see if it is still there. Yes, it is still there. It doesn't show on the first screen. But so if you start demographic CMIS or SRT triage, it's going to continue to list it as incomplete. It's going to continue to show the start button. But if you get part of the way through it and have to back out of it and then come back, what you did before has not been lost, which was the prior behavior. One of the things that's new here is that we've got a shelter referral log here, and you can see it in two different ways, one of which you can see referrals based on a specific client or household. Two, there is a report, which I'll show you in a little bit, that shows you all the referrals and what kind they are, et cetera. But to enter a referral, you literally hit new referral, and the referral screen is really fairly cool, I think. So if you need to do a disability integration referral, and maybe somebody needs replacement equipment, and then you also need to do a spiritual care referral, and they have that. You can do them all at the same time, and maybe they need to talk to SRT about housing. You can do them all at the same time. When you submit them, what winds up happening is each one is submitted as a separate referral, and there are new dashboards, and you can then see them listed separately. They're new dashboards that have been created for the IDC people and SRT people, the people that consume these referrals, so that they have the ability to go and locate, let me see everybody that has a healthcare referral in this shelter, for instance, and I know who I need to go talk to. So the whole business of referrals and referral management has been significantly changed, and this is a nice trick. Transportation request, and I will show you how to do transportation requests. There is an open enhancement request in for transportation requests to add a create new button here, but that has not happened yet, and I do not know whether it will happen this year or not. What we added towards the end of last year, and I'm going to point it out again because it's significant, is this business to mark a record as a duplicate entry. So we had problems, particularly in Maui, we had problems with people getting registered more than once. And so it was really hard to keep up with who the real, how many people we were really serving, if you will, because we registered somebody twice or three times, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So we added this capability to mark a client record as a duplicate record. What it does not delete the record. It doesn't merge the two records together, but it will check that record out. So it does not show up as part of a recommended nightly count piece of information. So that one, and you get there by hitting the edit button. And so the edit button will turn to save, and it's a little bit more visible than it used to be. And then you just hit duplicate, and it will ask you who you want to mark as a duplicate. Is it everybody in the household, or is it just one person, et cetera? So the FEMA registration number has been in the system, but they pulled it to the front so that you can see the associated numbers all on the one screen. And Oh, look at all those cats. The consent forms are here. And then down at the very bottom, you've got two things that I find personally quite useful. One is comments, and you can add a new comment, and it can be whatever you want. I'll make it simple. With the comments, you can edit a comment. And then there's also occasionally an ability to, and this looks like a bug to me because it's supposed to also allow you to allow a manager to mark it as inappropriate. Then there's this down here, the shelter stay history. And the shelter stay history is quite useful because it includes the checkout reason. And if somebody is it gives you the information on the room and when it was assigned, it's a room or cot and when it was assigned. But you also have this checkout reason business here. And let me show you what the checkout reasons are. So if you go to check somebody out, you get the standard, who are you checking out? Then you've got these three reasons here that are now, some choice is required. The default is set to normal. But you've got no-show. So if you're transferring people from one shelter to another shelter and they just simply never showed up and you got to check those records out, no-show is the right one. And then you've got evicted. And we all know that occasionally we have clients that come into our shelters and they get rowdy. They don't behave well. I had one in one shelter that was attacking another client. I mean, things happen, right? And we do occasionally evict clients. We don't want to, but at any rate, you have the ability to mark evicted. And what that's useful for is that if that person turns around and goes to another shelter, you can pull up their record and you can look at their shelter stay history and you can look at the checkout reason and you can see whether or not they've been evicted. If they've been evicted, the shelter manager is supposed to be the one to make a decision as to whether or not to allow them in, et cetera. So that's just the way that works.
Hey, Nancy, we have a quick question. Is there a place to note why they were evicted?
You can put a note in the comments section. That would be my recommendation. Evicted because of umpty frats, right?
Great.
Because the comments will be visible when someone opens up the record.
Right. Okay, good. Thanks.
Okay. So now let me go over to shelter ops, which is, that's not what I want. That's what I want. So let's go over and look at shelter ops because there's a bunch of new stuff that's been added. I showed you the referrals. We're going to pick our neighborhood center here. So shelter ops has got, in my mind, there's sort of two different sets of information here. There are pieces that are interactive where you can order something or send in a daily report, those kind of things. And then there are other pieces that just provide you with a report, a piece of information. So our site summary is in the report space. It's a quick overview of what's going on in the shelter. I won't go through all of these, but I will try to point out a few key pieces here that are quite useful. The roster, in lieu of a COP map, which we do not have yet, though there is a requirement that's been drafted, you can pop open the individual things and see what COTS people are assigned to. So that can be useful if you're doing that. One request I made personally was to give us a select all or open all or something like that button so you could pop the whole lot of them open at the same time. But we'll see how that plays out. But this does give you at least the information on where people are staying. So we've got, I'll quickly take a peek at some of the basic reporting kinds of things here, and then we'll dive deeper into the ones that are interactive. So all of the missing information reports are all bolted together into one place here, and it just gives you a list. It's just literally, it looks like a roster. All of those are basically roster style reports. And you've got the same kind of thing with dietary information, and we have nobody that's got dietary issues in this shelter, so you don't get anything. I will say that client notices and habitability, those are two features that were added to support non-congregate sheltering. So if you wind up in a situation where you are in non-congregate sheltering and you do have to deal with the concept of habitability, whether or not someone's house is habitable and they can stay in our shelter or not, or if you have to give out notices, those are the two you're going to want to work with. Transfer and mass checkout were here last year, so I'm not going to go into those, and personal care assistant was here last year as well. So let's look at the stuff though that's new. So we'll start with referral log. Okay, so if you come here, you can see that right now today we have a disability integration and a health services referral, and the client is this one. So we're looking at the disability integration one. These are those sort of invisible tabs, and we've got a referral log history for Travis Brown. If you click here, it will take you to Travis's page, his landing page. I was hoping it was going to take me back where I wanted to go, but if you click on the view details piece, so back to referrals. Yeah, if you click down here where it says view details, then you get the details. You get a pop-up and you get the details of the referral itself. And there's a status thing here, and this is theoretically, here's your choices, and this is supposed to be updated by the individual activities, so SRT or health services, etc. Sometimes you may find yourself dealing with that if they are not getting it done, and you know the updates. But that is the theory about how that's supposed to work.
So Nancy, we have a quick question.
Sure.
Will the referral be sent to the group that it's requested?
So it's not email, so it's not pushed to them, but it is present now on a dashboard, which they have all been trained on how to use. So the expectation is that the activities that can get referrals will be using the referral dashboards to determine who they need to work with.
Great, thank you.
So this is the referral, and literally if you click around, come on, X out of there. Okay, let's see what happens if I do that. Oh, great. There. If you click around on the different invisible tabs, you'll see, and I've just put in 3 of them for that one person, but if there were a whole bunch of people, you would get the longer list. So, and you can enter a new referral from this page as well as from the landing page for the specific individual client. Okay. Sorry. I should have used that back button. That back button is supposed to take you back to the page you were on before. I don't know that it has consistently been implemented, but they are trying. Okay, let's look at orders next, because there's 2 different types of orders that we've got now. Meal orders, and this is literally putting in your order for meals. Now, there's no orders that have been put in for this particular one, and there's not an active one, but you can select new meal order, and you wind up with a page that looks like this. So you're ordering lunch and dinner. Breakfast is always your snacky stuff. And your choices here, a number of days needed, are 1, 2, or 3. We don't let you order more than 3 days worth of meals at a time. If you order 3 and you say, well, I want it to start tomorrow, it's going to calculate the last date for you. So you don't ever type into the end date for the meal order. You type in only to the start date, and see, when I changed it, it calculated that as well. And then you've got how many regular meals you need. So maybe you need 10, and you can both type or use the toggle here. And then you've got special meals and how many of those you need. And it will do the math for you down here that tells you how many total. And you do basically exactly the same thing for dinner. And I'm just going to say 10 and 1 again, and then you submit. Once you've submitted, when you come here to this page, now you've got a meal order that is quote unquote active, okay? And you can't enter a second meal order while you have an active meal order. Now, if you just entered this meal order and 20 minutes later, a busload of people showed up and now you have 111 that you need instead of just 11, you can always cancel it and enter a different meal order. So that's the way you handle that kind of type of situation. And you can click on them and pop them open and see what has been ordered, what you've got there. So that is always possible. Okay, that's meals ordered. Now let's go look at, because we've got two pieces to meals. It's meals ordered and meals served, right? So if you come to reporting, you'll find meals served. And you pop it open and it tells you how many you said you needed, and you enter how many you served. Maybe you only served 10, and maybe you served all 11 down here. And you submit. Presto changeo. Your meals served have been saved. You get that little confirmation message, and off you go. There is another piece here, which is meal order summary. This can be useful for shelter managers. It's not a heavily used feature, and they've made noises about taking it away. But as long as it's there, the way this happens is these two come from the meal served that we just entered. And then this third one comes from the shelter daily report, which we'll look at next. So the shelter daily report has been added. It's got a dashboard that can be used at DRO headquarters or national headquarters, wherever it needs to be used. In this particular case, there is not a historical one to show, but we can create a new one. This is the same shelter daily report that you had on paper. It is exactly the same. It gives you the information about when it has to be submitted. It asks you for the date of the report, and then it will calculate when it was submitted and pull who submitted it based on who's logged in and entering the data. And it is literally exactly what you had before. It's just a different way of submitting it. One of the things that is kind of nice about what they've done here is, let's say we answered a few of these, but we weren't real sure about some of them. And yeah, the meals were served on time. But we didn't have everything we needed. You can come down to the bottom and you can save a draft. So if you have, for instance, you had a meeting in the morning and you know exactly who's out processing the next day and what you're going to need, then you can go ahead and start your daily report before, at any point during the day and save a draft. Once you've saved a draft, you can go back and then you will see it, and it will give you the ability to edit it. You can only submit one daily report a day. So use the draft function if you need to work on it over a period of time. And then you can submit it once you've completed it. And like I said, there is a dashboard that is available for various sheltering management functions to be able to pull the information associated with this report. Okay, so we've talked about meal served, we've talked about meal order summary, we've talked about shelter daily report. As of last February, we did officially switch the way nightly counts are to be done, and they are now to be put into SCIA. You can only submit one nightly count a day or one overnight population, one population count a day. There have been situations where people have wanted, 3 of them a day, and the system is not structured for doing that. So that's just that. You've got, once again, those in sort of invisible tabs, the exclamation points and the X's appear, and this information tells you what you have and have not done. So in this case, I may say, well, okay, great. We actually have 6 people, and I can submit that. And so now I have submitted the client one, but not the pet one. So I come here and I enter pets, and, it looks like there's none, but I know somebody just walked in with a bird. So there you go. And you can hit that as well. And so now it confirms for you up here that you have submitted those counts, and they're good to go. And once again, there's a dashboard that they're using to pull this data. Okay, the only other thing I want to show you, and I'm trying to pay attention to time, is transportation requests. Transportation requests are new, very new. And this is designed to allow you to request support to take someone to a doctor's office or a home inspection or whatever things they need. So there's a new transportation request, and you click that. We have asked to have that same button put on the client landing page and put you essentially into this screen. What's interesting about the way this one is designed is that they've kind of designed a path, so they show you where you are on the path. One thing that I'm not real crazy with, let's see if I can do this. It wants full name. And if you don't know somebody's full name, then you're going to have problems. So, I don't remember the name of my people. Let me go find a person quickly. Melissa Davis, that's a good name. So you put in the full name, the date, and maybe it's tomorrow that we need the transportation for. And there are no transportation requests for her at this point. So we're going to do the new one. And we do recommend that you check first to see if there's anything outstanding. And you want a phone number, because that way you can contact them when the transportation arrives. And then you find the client. Okay, there's an existing client there. I didn't get the phone number right, but it fixed it. Okay, it fixed the phone number for me. I could add a second client. Maybe Melissa's got somebody that's going with her. You can go to next, and then you go through the details necessary to set this up. So why, what kind of transportation, what's the reason, health-related needs, has it been approved by the shelter site manager? Yes, generally. Do they need accessible transportation? So do they need a wheelchair accessible van, for instance, or do they need a car seat because they've got a baby with them, that sort of thing. And actually I'll put no, so I don't have to type too much. And then the last question is, do they have a pet that's going to be going with them? So it needs to be a pet-friendly transportation. Then you go to the pickup location and you talk about, is this a round trip or a one-way trip? And you put in the date, and let's say we're going for tomorrow, and you put in the time, and let's say we're going for 9 a.m. And so that's your, and we said round trip, so that's your pickup date and time. Your return date and time, let's say it's also tomorrow, but it's more like 12 p.m. and you've got now your date and time. Then you have to put in the location. Are they coming from the shelter location or are they coming from somewhere else? And so this is where you're picking them up from and then where you're dropping them off to. And so this is the other piece. So not a shelter location. Don't know whether I could do this or not, but let's see. Try my address here. Yep. Okay. It's going to take it. And then you can put in a note to the driver, so-and-so will be wearing a red hat, or call this phone number when you get here, or whatever kind of instructions you need to provide the driver. And then you go to next, and then you get the summary of your entire transportation request. You have the ability to review all of that or go back and fix it, and then you submit your request. And so now there is one transportation request here, and you can see the list of it, and this will show up on a dashboard so that the logistics and transportation people can deal with picking someone up. Okay, I think that is all we have time for. That is the bulk of what's new. Yep, that is the bulk of what's new that I need to show you. And watch this space, you'll start seeing blue. When you see blue in the training environment, you can figure that the production environment's probably about 2 weeks away. And you can then start to get familiar with the new features and expect to see the production environment update quickly.
Hey, Nancy, I'm going to ask you just a couple quick questions.
Sure.
When you're doing a food request, can it handle a special meal that combines two needs, like gluten-free and kosher in one? I didn't see how you might
cannot yet. We have asked to have, dear darling Jane Scanlon called this one out. We have asked to have a comments field added so that if you need pureed gluten-free food, for instance, you don't order a pureed meal and a gluten-free meal and get nothing that you can really use, right? So we have asked for that. For now, if you wind up with those kind of combo meals, you need to reach out to whoever the feeding manager is, or your shelter manager needs to reach out to the feeding manager and explain that you have a combo meal, not just a single choice there.
Okay.
But we have asked to have a feature added to make it easier to do that through SCIA.
Okay. Quick questions on transportation. Are transportation requests only on level 4 still?
Yeah, that I don't know.
I just looked quickly in the doctrine and I couldn't find it.
I don't know.
I would think you'd have to look more closely at the transportation request in the doctrine on OneSource. I looked quickly and I couldn't find anything, but I was only a brief summary.
But that's an excellent question.
Who monitors the transportation requests so clients aren't forgotten and stranded?
That is the logistics team.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yep. And do you know
all of the things that we're capturing in SCIA, for which we're offering dashboards to, like IDC and transportation and feeding, they are signed up for and obligated to monitor those dashboards and use them as their source of information.
Okay. And how do we know a request is handled? Is there feedback?
So like for feeding,
no, for transportation.
For transportation, I don't think there's a specific feedback in there at present. For the referral log stuff, there is the ability to go in and say it's been accepted by the activity, it's been resolved, it's been canceled, whatever. But both feeding and transportation don't have a place to put in, done, basically. But that's an excellent suggestion.
And there's a couple questions on who's transporting the clients. I would imagine that depends on what logistics can find out for each location. Some places have Uber, some places don't, if shuttles are available. So they'll use whatever they need, whatever they have available. And it'll be different on different jobs.
Yep. Spot on, Laura.
I think those are most of the questions. I see some more in Q&A that I've tried to grab most of them and answer them online. But we'll go back through here and check the questions that we have and see if we can put some more answers in the chat. So as a matter of time, I wanted to end this on time. We will have another meeting next week. Our topic is transitioning from shelter SA to supervisor to shelter site manager. So that should be an interesting one for lots of people. Hopefully you'll tune in again next week and we'll see you then. Thanks for hanging with us tonight.
Thank you, everyone.